The 2025 NFL schedule is out, and now it's time to chop it up. I'm Jason Bristol here in the KHOU 11 News Studio. The Texans, their opponents, we knew them. Now we know the when. Houston will be playing twice on Monday Night Football, once on Thursday, once on Sunday night. In all, 6 nationally televised games. And now, let me bring in my colleague, Luis Ortiz from KHOU 11 Sports. Your initial reaction to what we've seen, this schedule, and how it's laid out.
Yeah, I think my initial reaction, Jason, is it's an easier schedule than it was last year, right? Mm-hmm. And Texans, they must get 10 wins.
Yeah.
It's set up for them to get 10 wins. They got 10 wins last year. Look, one of the biggest things that pops out initially, it's the early bye week. Week 6, first time since 2022 that they get an early bye week like that. So last year, you talked about it earlier, they had a really late bye week. Now it's early in the season. So it could be a double-edged sword because now that sets you up for a long ending of the season.
It does, but I think, and looking at a friend of mine in the industry, Ross Tucker, who does some games on CBS, he mentioned one thing that players first look at when it comes to the schedule, when is the bye week. And this time, it's week 6. So last year, it was so late in the season, and things weren't going well on offense. Mm-hmm. And because that bye week was so late, it would have been really difficult to make any major changes with the offense. Now, week 6, say things aren't going well, you can, I imagine, make some changes now because you have so much of that season left. Now, we are also on the KHOU 11 Facebook page and our KHOU 11 YouTube page. Leave us your comments. We'll read them here on the air. Tell us what you think. What are the toughest games? Which part of the season schedule is the toughest stretch of games? Are you happy with the bye week? Do you have a prediction on how many wins and losses? Does it matter how this schedule stacks up, where you are playing your division opponents? Of course, the Texans are leading off with a road game at the Rams. You can see that game right here on KHOU 11. The first home game is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, week 2. Then your first division game at Jacksonville. That game will also be here on KHOU 11. Then you have the Tennessee Titans at Baltimore. Woo, that's a tough one. Then you have the bye at Seattle. 3 games at home in a row. San Francisco, Denver, Jacksonville. Then you're at Tennessee. Home against Buffalo. 2 road games at Indianapolis, at Kansas City. The Kansas City game is a Sunday night game. Then you come back home for 2 games. Arizona, Las Vegas. You're at the Chargers and then home against the Colts. And listen, for those people out there in Indianapolis, they're probably thinking, okay, that might decide the division, that game. I don't know if that's ideally going to happen, but certainly that's what the NFL thinks about when they're doing some of these schedules. They like to have that game at the end of the season, which could certainly determine a division winner. The toughest stretch of games in your mind, maybe a 3 or 4 game stretch, which one pops to you?
Yeah, I think the one that pops out is the one there with starting with the Bills here at home, and then you got the Colts, and then you go and play the Chiefs back to back weeks. Initially, I'm going to be honest, I thought it was the one right between the bye week, right? We're talking about Baltimore, the Ravens, and then you get the bye week, then you play Seattle on the road, then you play San Francisco here at home, and then you play Denver here at home. I thought maybe that was going to be a tough stretch right there.
Interesting.
You're talking about, okay, Ravens, you know that's a tough game.
Yeah.
Playing on the road against Seattle, that's going to be a tough game. And then now you come back and play the 49ers, who've been a pretty good team in the recent years. Broncos, maybe not so much, but they're on the come up as well. Bo Nix, right, they had great defense. So it could be a tough stretch as well.
But I would argue that having the bye makes it less difficult because you're coming off that game against Baltimore, and if things have gone really badly, you have a week actually 2 weeks, to really unpack what went wrong and then be able to say, okay, we've got some extra time now to fix what we need. Now, granted, going to Seattle is never an easy proposition.
No.
When you look at the teams that Houston has on this schedule, and you mentioned earlier it is a much easier schedule than last year, according to CBSSports.com, they have this schedule, or at least the strength of schedule, the 16th, tied for 16th in the NFL, a .481 winning percentage from the opponents from last year. Another one I see says 25th, just over a 500 winning percentage by the teams projected, so that would put it around 25th. I look at that stretch of games as well. Tennessee, more so Buffalo, Indianapolis, and the Chiefs. That is a really tough stretch of games. However, nothing compares to last year with those 3 games in 10 days. Yeah. And you were facing Baltimore and Kansas City in that stretch, not in that order, but nothing. Did I mention nothing will ever compare to that stretch of games? Again, we're on our KHOU 11 Facebook page. Drop us a comment. What are you thinking? What do you think about this schedule? We're also on our KHOU 11 YouTube page. Comment there as well. We want to know what you're thinking.
By the way, so I want to go back to the beginning of the schedule. Against the Rams, Caley making his offensive coordinator debut against his former team.
Little subplot there.
Right. Then week 2, Buccaneers. That's the rematch for D'Amico and CJ, their first wins as a quarterback coach duo.
Wow. How about you? I didn't even remember that.
Then you got week 3, Jacksonville. The return of Al-Shaair, Azeez Al-Shaair, after a suspension last against year. Jacksonville. And then you got week 4, here at home, Tennessee Titans, homecoming for the number 1 pick, Cam Ward.
And it's interesting when you look at where these teams, people are always like, well, does this really matter? It does matter because the way these teams stack up and where you see them, I would much rather see Cam Ward earlier in the season than I would later in the season because, I don't want to say deer in headlights, but that proverbial deer in headlights for a rookie quarterback and getting used to the pro game. Cam Ward was picked number 1 overall for a reason. Travis Hunter was picked number 2 for a reason. So you're going to see them really early on. Now you'll also see them a little later, but I would much rather see Cam Ward early on than I would later in the season when perhaps he's got his feet
right
under him. Yeah.
Right. No, I completely agree. And if we look at the schedule here, I think weeks 1 through 4, you know, you can probably say you win all 4 of those games if everything goes well. Now, I'm going to say this. I think the toughest opponent for the Texans are the Texans. They're the toughest opponent.
Well, that's what D'Amico said last year. Remember, he goes, you know, we can't have the Texans beating the Texans.
Right.
And that had to do a lot with a lot of the mental mistakes and the issues up front and the penalties and those kinds of things. And that was the Texans beating the Texans.
Yeah, so look, if everything goes well, and this is really, I think, a season in which the Texans show how much they progressed.
Yeah.
And look, coaches and GMs are always going to say, look, you can look at progressions in different ways because if CJ Stroud gets better or certain departments, certain areas get better, then yes, that's a way of progressing, right? But I think in the NFL or in sports in general, the metric that really matters, the measuring stick that really matters to show progression is winning.
Yeah.
You know, you got 10 wins last year. You've got to at least match that, if not surpass it, in order to say, hey, we got better. We're a better team now than we were last year. And then, we'll maybe break it down more when you talk about, okay, offense. How efficient was it? You know, how many touchdowns? How, you know, first downs and third down conversions and stuff like that. Then you can get down to the nitty gritty. But I think first 4 games you can win them. Then you got the Ravens, which we know that's a really tough game. It's been a tough game for the last few seasons. And if the Texans continue to win their division, they're going to continue to face the Ravens.
So I was listening to you while doing some research. So
multitasking.
Exactly, multitasking. I don't want anyone out there to think that I was being rude. I was not. I was curious because of what is the biggest question mark facing this team this year? What's the biggest question mark?
I think it continues to be the offensive line.
Exactly. So I was curious, looking at the top quarterback sack teams defensively last year, you're talking Denver, Baltimore, Texans were 4th.
Okay.
The Vikings, Tampa Bay. So Tampa Bay and the Chargers. So Tampa Bay was 6th on this list. You're going to get tested really quickly in game number 2.
Yeah.
And obviously, job one for this team is to protect that guy, number 7, because without him, nothing is achievable. Nothing. So they're going to be tested right away. Week 2, I mean, they're going to be tested week 1 as well, obviously, because of the moving parts and all the new faces. But I think that's interesting that you're going to face one of the top quarterback sackers, if you will, early on in the season, and that is going to be a very good test of this offensive line right away.
Well, probably throughout the whole season. I mean, a few of the teams that you were mentioning, they're on the schedule for this season. You mentioned Denver. That's one of the teams that they're going to face later on in the year, right? So I think you're going to see it throughout the whole season. How much did the offensive line improve? We talked about it in the draft. I thought they didn't address the O-line enough in the draft.
The Texans.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, look, if this is what they're going with, if they believe that they have the right pieces, they believe they have the right scheme in order to protect C.J. Stroud this year, or maybe, that's why they went with a few wide receivers, because they're thinking, look, as long as we can give them enough time to pass it and that we got those threats down the field, then we'll be okay. You got Joe Mixon who can run it too.
And maybe we'll see a little bit more of a quick passing game.
Yeah.
Because that certainly can open things up, getting the ball out of CJ's hands quickly. And that's sometimes a remedy for what ails you up front. Again, please let us know what you're thinking on the KHOU 11 Facebook page. I'm on there now looking for your comments. And
I'm on the YouTube one.
YouTube as well. So tell us what you think about this schedule. What would be your second toughest stretch of games?
I think it's the other one that I mentioned right before, in between the bye week.
Okay, but
so you got the
so
Ravens.
You're going to say Ravens and bye week, and then Seahawks,
Seattle,
49ers, and Broncos.
Denver. Yeah. To me, just I get it. It's not the Bills and the Chiefs, which are two juggernauts, right? But you do have the Ravens, who we know, Lamar Jackson. I mean, this guy's been an MVP a couple times now. And then again, playing on the road in Seattle, that's never an easy game. And then you come back and you play the 49ers, who usually have a pretty well-balanced team.
Yeah. I don't know if they're the 49ers that we're accustomed to, but
they had a drop-off last year. They did.
They did.
But I don't think it's an easy game per se. And then the Broncos. They had a good defense. Let's see what Bo Nix, how much he improves. You mentioned it. They were one of those teams that sacked the quarterback the most.
Yeah.
Or more frequently, rather, I should say. So I think that's the second toughest stretch.
And also, when we talk about the toughest stretch, the one silver lining, I guess, is yes, you have a short turnaround at Tennessee. That's a Sunday game, and then you have to go Thursday to play Buffalo. But then you have 10 days before you see Indianapolis, and then you go Sunday to Sunday. So there is a little bit of a silver lining there that you will have some extra time to prepare for a division rival. It's interesting that you will not be seeing Indianapolis until late November, and who knows what their quarterback situation will be. They have, of course, Anthony Richardson. They have Daniel Jones. I always think that Indianapolis, regardless of who's taking snaps, certainly they're always a tough challenger for the Texans. And by the time that you're seeing Indianapolis later in the year, maybe they have their quarterback situation figured out. For their sake, they better.
Right.
But you may not be catching Indianapolis at a good time. It may have been better to face them earlier in the year.
Yeah, well, it could go either way, right? And if they don't have their quarterback situation figured out, then you catch them on the backfield.
They might be 3 and whatever at that time.
Right. And maybe try to make midseason changes. And, you hear it all the time. In the NFL, teams really, they're very, they don't want to do midseason changes, right?
Yeah.
You saw with the Texans last year with Bobby Slowick. Everybody just knew that, okay, this offense is not working. You could see the writing was on the wall that he was going to be on his way out, and they just decided to stick with him throughout the whole year. So it'll be interesting. I think, look, the AFC South, it's for the Texans to take it, to win it.
Yep.
And after that, I think maybe Indianapolis might be the team that they'll give them the biggest challenge.
I don't think you can count out Jacksonville because, and granted, I know that Trevor Lawrence has not lived up to the ideals which people had of Trevor Lawrence when he came out.
This could be his breakout season.
It could be,
right?
and you consider that they have one of these offensive gurus coming in as the head coach, and they've given him a weapon, a unicorn in Travis Hunter, and maybe they'll be a challenger. And Tennessee, let's not forget Tennessee. You have the number 1 overall pick, and they've got a few guys here and there. So
with Jacksonville, though, is one guy enough? And when you talk about Travis Hunter, you know, is one guy enough to make that big of a difference?
Mm-hmm.
You talk about, you know, defensively, he could shut down whether he's going to be guarding Nico Collins or whoever it is, shut down one of you guys. But then that's why the Texans drafted other wide receivers, and then you got other options, right? So I don't know if, you know, he can do it all by himself. You're going to have to get Trevor Lawrence to show up, have a breakout season, and really live up to the expectations. And then you talk about, okay, Jacksonville could be a threat.
Yep. Looking here at some of the comments on the Texans page.
What's your prediction for the record for the season?
I got to go through now.
Well, let's go.
All right, let's do it.
One by one.
Let's go. That's a great exercise right there. Let's go one by one. All right, so I'll put in one column Luis, and I'll put one column Jason.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, so week 1 at the Rams.
Yeah. I think Texans win it.
Well,
Matt Stafford.
yeah, I mean,
They won it last year.
yeah. What was that game?
The one they sacked them 5 times, right?
They did. Rams, Texans, 2024. Yeah, they won by 2 points.
Oh,
No, that was preseason. My bad. Preseason doesn't count, people.
I mean, look, it's a tough game because it's on the road.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say they start 4-1. First 5 games.
Okay. So you got 2-0, 3-0, or what do you got here? Let me look.
4-1. So they win 4 in a row and then lose to Baltimore. And I know that's taking the easy way out, right? Because everybody
and then
expects
5, you got 4-1.
Yeah.
I'm bad at this. I'm going to say a win. Buccaneers Monday night.
Here at home.
Here at home.
By the way, the Texans provided a stat. I can't remember if it's the first or second time that their home opener is on Monday Night Football. I think it's either the first or second.
Okay, I'm looking at it here. It's the first time in franchise history that the team has made its home opener on Monday Night Football.
Okay, there we go.
That's week 2.
Yeah.
It's the second time the Texans have ever started their season on the West Coast. The last time was 2013 at San Diego. The bye week, again, week 6, the Texans are saying that it is the second time they've had week 6 as the bye week. The last time was 2022.
Yep. And see, here's the thing. When we talk about having the early bye week and then it just creates a long ending to the season, that 2022 week 6 bye week, they ended up losing 9 games in a row after that. Now, granted, that team is completely different to the one that they have now. Roster-wise, talent and everything.
Everything.
I think that team was like 13-1 or something like that. I can't remember the exact record, but it was a very bad team.
This is also something I don't think people are really talking about. The Texans are playing 3 games on the West Coast this season. And certainly it's a little different than when you're flying from, say, New York or New England or Tampa. But, you know, 3 games out west, it's not ideal.
Right.
But again, I don't think it's terrible. I'm really slowing this exercise down.
Yeah.
I'm going to say.
You think they beat the Rams game 1?
I do.
Week 1? Okay.
Tampa Bay, I'm not completely sold on yet.
I think they win that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll go 2-0. Jacksonville 3-0, 4-0. Yeah, I can see 4-1 as well. All right, so then we got the bye. All right, at Seattle. I think that's a win.
I think so too.
San Francisco, I think, is a win. I don't think San Francisco's that good.
Yeah, I agree. I think you win that one.
And plus,
Denver.
it's here.
Yeah.
Denver's at home.
I think you win that one too. winnable games again.
I'm going to say it's a loss.
Okay. I say they win it.
All right, so you're at 7-1. I'm at 6-2.
Now, 7-1 sounds amazing, right?
Yeah.
Again, I'm going to go back to what I said in the beginning. If the Texans don't beat themselves, they, penalties, mistakes, turnovers.
That offensive line, do you have that much confidence in this offensive line? I don't know.
No, I don't.
Now I want to go back. Now I want to go back and change. All right, so 7-1, 6-2, so we're up to.
I don't have that much confidence in the O-line, but I have enough confidence in the whole team overall.
Okay.
I mean, you talk about the defense, what the defense can do and limit the opponent. CJ in the offense, hopefully we get, we'll see what KHOU does with the offense. But I think so far.
So this would be Seattle. This is San Francisco. This is Denver. Jacksonville at home. That might be the most important stretch of games, actually, when I look at it.
Jacksonville, Tennessee, Buffalo, Colts?
No, the toughest stretch is certainly the one that we talked about.
Right.
But if you can make some hay against some of these other teams from a quote-unquote, well, Denver's a good team. All right, so Jacksonville, Week 10.
Yeah.
You're a win, I assume?
Yeah.
So you're at 8-1.
Yeah.
I'm at 7-2. Then we've got at Tennessee. You're 9-1, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think you win that one too.
I'm 8-2.
I've seen a lot of fans on
So here we
on
go.
Twitter.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of fans on Twitter already throwing out at least 10, like they're a double-digit win season.
All right, so now Buffalo, home.
That's a tough one. Home, Buffalo.
See, the thing is, Buffalo earlier in the season would have been
easier.
much better.
Right.
Because look at what Buffalo was last year.
Yeah.
And then Buffalo became Buffalo near the end of the season, and that's where you're getting them.
I think they might go on a.
I'm going to say 8-3. What are you going to say? I'm going to say a loss.
I say they lose against Buffalo.
All right, so you're at 9-2.
Yep.
Then you've got at the Colts, should be a win. So you're at 10-2. I'm at 9-3. Kansas City, I assume a loss.
Yeah.
10-3. I'm going to say a win at Kansas City.
Wow.
I'm going to say a win.
So now we're even again, 10-3, both of us.
I might change that opinion 2 months from now. Yeah. No, you know what? That's too much. I'm at 9-4.
9-4.
Too much. Arizona. I'm going to say that's a loss. I'm at 9-5. What are you at?
Here's what if you can change mine to 9-4, because I think after that Buffalo loss, I think they're just going on a 3-game losing streak. Buffalo, Colts, Chiefs.
Oh, wow. So now you're at
9-4. Yeah.
5, 9-6.
No. No, I'm not. I guess I'm not clear. I think they lose Buffalo, Colts, and Chiefs.
All right, hold on. Denver. Yeah. This is the problem with doing this live.
So it was Jacksonville.
Denver, Jacksonville.
Yep. Titans.
Tennessee, Buffalo. Indy.
Kansas City. So I think they lose those 3 games. Buffalo,
Kansas
Indy,
City,
Kansas City.
Arizona, Las Vegas.
Yeah.
LA.
Chargers and
Indy.
then Colts. Right.
All right, so where are you taking the losses?
We were here Buffalo 9-2.
Yeah.
Indy 9-3.
9-3.
Yep. KC
9-4.
Right.
So then we're back together.
Yeah. And I think they bounce back.
So then they're 10-4 after a win at Arizona.
I think they win out the last 4.
Okay. So wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of faith in this offensive line, man. Lot of faith.
Unless they've already secured the division and you're
saying they're going to go 13-4?
I think so. I think that again, if the Texans progress the way that they should,
that is a lot of faith on this.
Well, listen, they won 10 games last year, right?
Yeah.
Would you say 3 more wins would be
against a schedule that is supposedly easier?
And if you're progressing, if the goal is to get better each year, a CJ now in year 3?
Yeah.
Year 3, CJ now who's hopefully improving over the offseason, right? Again, I get you with the offensive line. I'm with you on that. I think if you're supposed to get better, 3 more wins than you got last year against an easier schedule.
All right, I'll go 12-6. So I guess I'm only, or 12-5 rather.
Okay.
So I guess I'm only one off you, one away from yours. 13 seems really.
If the Texans don't get in their own way.
Can you guarantee that, though?
That's why it's a big if.
All right, everybody. I think that's going to do it.
Yeah.
That's going to do it for our 2025 schedule release breakdown. Let us know what you're thinking. We're going to be also talking about this on KHOU 11 News at 10 and on KHOU 11 Sports Extra on Sunday night. We'll be talking much more about the schedule. And who knows, between now and then, we may change.
I'm sticking
You're
with
sticking
it now.
with
Yeah.
You're sticking with it.
You have to, man. You can't, can't get cold feet.
All right. All right, everybody. For Luis, I'm Jason. Thanks for watching us here on KHOU 11+.